They're going to be worse off.
No, they're not. And he's wrong again.
Did he just say that all these people won't be worse off?
80% of taxpayers
Are going to be worse off.
but the Treasurer doesn't apparently know that they're going to be worse off. Hi, I'm Matt Grudnoff.
And I'm Richard Dennis.
And welcome to Spin Bin. Richard, what is Spin Bin?
Spin bin is for anyone who's been frustrated watching an interview on television where a politician just won't answer the question and throws statistics around and goes off and econobabbles and does everything but answer the question.
So most political interviews these days.
Pretty much television. We're going to break down what these interviews are, and just like the footy shows where they break down the play after the match, we're going to hit pause, we're going to use slow-mo, and we're going to help people understand what was happening, how the game was played, how a politician made black seem white, night equals day, and tax cuts for high income earners sound like they're good for everybody.
All right, so which interview are we going to look at today?
Well, we're going to start with Josh Frydenberg being interviewed by David Speers on Insiders. Now, David did a great job of trying to hold the Treasurer to account, but guess what? It didn't matter what he asked him, out came the nonsense, out came the econobabble. So today we're going to look at that interview and we're going to break down what was said and when. But before we do that, let's give you a bit of context so that you can actually understand what's going to happen when the Treasurer starts to do it.
Now, this context is something that doesn't usually happen in political interviews these days. They don't tend to tell you coming up, what the sort of questions
No,
are
they
going
just
to be.
assume everyone knows all about the intricacies of the tax system.
That's right. And while we know the intricacies of the tax system,
As
some
luck would have
people
it.
out there, non-economists, might not find this fascinating or the intricacies of the tax system fascinating. So we're going to give you a quick breakdown of what's going on.
So Matt, to understand Josh Frydenberg's nonsense, what do we need to know about the Lamington?
The Lamington, as it's been affectionately called, is the
Sounds friendly.
It does sound friendly. It's the low and middle income tax offset.
What's an offset?
A tax offset? Well, a tax cut is something you get every fortnight, every time you get paid. A tax offset is something that you get at the very end of the year when you submit your tax return. Basically, the tax office credits you with some money.
So it's a check.
It's basically a check.
It's cash.
When you submit your tax
So
return.
the low and middle income tax offset means cash for low and middle income earners. There's a hint in the name.
That's exactly right. And
If you're a low and middle income earner, it sounds like a great thing.
it is. So let's have a look at who actually gets the low and middle income tax offset, or the Lamington as we're going to call it.
Tell me about the Lamington. What have we got here?
What we've got here is all of the taxpayers down the bottom here by decile. So a decile is 10 equally sized groups with all of the people who earn the least amount of income in the first group.
So this is the poorest 10% of the population?
Then the next poorest 10%, the next all the way up to
The richest 10%.
That's right, and it basically shows how much of the Lamington each of those deciles get. And we can see that low income earners get a little bit, middle income earners get the vast majority, and high income earners, the
Zero.
top 10% nothing, top 20% only 5%.
So the Lamington does what its name suggests and delivers most of its benefits to low and middle income earners. What about the stage 3 tax cuts?
All right, so this is the stage 3 tax cuts. We've got our deciles down the bottom.
Looks a bit different.
It does. Poorest 10%, richest 10%. Totally different, all right? The bottom end get basically nothing.
Well, literally nothing, tiny bit for the bottom third.
Yeah, and even here it's quite small. So where does it all go? It all
Top
goes.
10% of income earners get more than half of the benefit.
The vast majority of the stage 3 tax cuts goes to high income earners.
So this is the stage 3 tax cuts that are coming our way.
Okay,
What do we got here?
well, so the government is going to get rid of the LAMITO
Which goes to middle income earners,
next year, and then in a couple of years' time, the stage 3 tax cut will come in.
which goes to the high income earners.
And so this looks at, if you lose all these orange bars here, are people losing the Lamington.
So someone on $47,000 is losing about $1,000.
Yep, and here in the blue bars is all the people gaining the stage 3 tax cut.
Wow. If only we could combine those two graphs, Matt, and
There we have it, right? This is combining the two. So this is who's going to be worse off. So everybody up to $90,000 a year will lose more when the Lamington goes out than will gain when stage 3 tax cuts come in.
so these people have lost the Lamington, and these people have lost the Lamington but got some tax cut.
Yep,
And then after $90,000,
Then the Lamington is smaller than the tax cut. So all of these people above 90 grand are better off.
And if I earn $190,000 a year, I'm $9,000 a year better off under this system.
Yep, about $350 a fortnight.
So Scott Morrison's a man of the people. There must be a lot of people that are rich like this and not many people up here.
Well, you'd think that, but it's the exact opposite. If you earn 90 grand or less, so this group of people, all the people who lose, that's 80% of taxpayers.
So 8 in 10 Australians earn less than 90 grand.
Yep, and
but we're
2
going
in
to give
10
enormous amounts of tax cuts to these higher income earners.
Yep, so these 20% get all of the tax cut.
Wow. Well, let's now go to the tape.
Someone earning $45,000 a year is going to be $855 a year worse off than they are today. Someone on 60 grand is going to be about $700 a year worse off than they are today. Someone earning $80,000 will be about $200 worse off than they are today. Everyone earning more than 200 grand will be $9,000 better off under your tax cuts. Is that correct?
That sounds like a great question, Matt.
That is a great question.
What's he just asked?
Well, he's basically asked, is this true?
Right. Well,
and we know that it is true because we've sat down and done the maths and we've worked out that it is in fact true.
Well, let's see what the Treasurer's got to say.
Correct?
Well, if Anthony Albanese abolishes these tax cuts,
I'm not asking.
Oh,
Hang on. What's he just said?
He's just started to talk about Labor, the opposition leader, Anthony Albanese.
He was asked, is it true that getting rid of LAMITO, replacing it with stage 3 will hurt low-income earners?
Which is the government's policy, not Labor's policy.
And he's talking about Labor already. Let's see what else he's got to say.
Asking about Labor, Treasurer.
But again,
I'm
that's
asking about your
this
tax cuts. Is that correct?
Well, the point is that someone on $80,000 will be better off. Someone on $90,000.
He tell us what the point is, Matt. He said someone on $80,000 will be better off.
Well, no, they won't be. We know for sure that somebody on $80,000 will be worse off.
Well, let's keep watching.
Will be better off. Someone
How
on
will they be better off
100,000.
than they are today? Is what you've just said correct?
Absolutely.
How will they?
He's wrong.
He's doubling down.
He's doubling down. He reckons he's right, but we know that somebody on 80 grand is definitely worse off.
All right, let's see how much deeper into this hole he can dig himself.
They'd be better off.
So if you don't go forward with stage 3 of the tax cuts, someone on $80,000 will be $900 worse off.
Ah, so here's
If we
his
don't
trick.
go ahead with what?
So he's saying basically, ignore the LAMITO. He's not including the LAMITO. He's only including the stage 3 tax cut. So he's saying that somebody on 80 grand, if you ignore the loss of the LAMITO, is actually better off under the stage 3 tax cut.
Does he know they're going to remove the LAMITO?
Well, David Speers specifically asked him and said, remove the LAMITO, then add in the stage 3 tax cuts, and suddenly who's better off and who's worse off?
So he's only talking about one side of the ledger.
Yeah, he's not really answering the question at all.
All right, let's keep watching.
Someone on $90,000 will be $1,120 worse off. Someone on $100,000 will be $1,370 worse off.
He's talking about people being worse off.
Yeah, that's a bit weird. I think he's tangling himself up there.
Or is he saying that if we don't have the stage 3 tax cuts, people will be worse off?
Yeah, remember he was talking about the Labor Party, and the Labor Party haven't decided yet whether they want to support the stage 3 tax cut.
But to be clear, it's the government's policy to remove this,
Yep.
and the government's policy to introduce this,
Yep.
and that means everyone up to here is going to be worse off.
Correct.
All right, let's keep watching.
The key point is, and this is really important, David,
The key point is,
They're always going back to the key point.
I'm not sure he's actually answering the question.
you mentioned someone on $45,000. When stage 3 of the tax cuts is locked in, they will then be better off by $1,080.
Hang on, he's just said that someone on $45,000 will be better off.
Well, no, they're actually the people who are worse off. Not only that, but they get nothing of the stage 3 tax cuts.
So who's he talking about?
I don't know, and they do get the maximum rate of the Lamington.
So is the Treasurer just making things up at this point?
He seems to be either very confused or he's trying to give the impression or trying to confuse everybody who's watching.
Well, so far so good, but luckily we can pause, so let's keep listening.
Compared to what they would have been in back in 17-18 before the tax plan.
Whoa!
Oh.
Okay, so the Treasurer is not talking about the future here. He's gone back into the past and said, before I gave you the tax cut that you currently have,
Imagine if I didn't.
Imagine if I didn't.
You'd be worse off if I didn't give you the thing I've already given you.
Exactly right. So Richard, imagine that, you know,
Sorry,
I
I'm
hired
just
you.
confused saying that.
All right, so imagine, Richard, I hired you and I paid you $60,000 a year.
That'd be nice.
And after a year, I said, Richard, you've done a good job. I've decided to give you a pay increase.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to give you $63,000 a year.
Hang on, have we prepared a graphic for this?
We have prepared a graphic for this. So I started off, I'm going to pay you $60K a year, $60,000.
Thank you.
Then I've decided you've done good. I'll give you a pay rise of $3,000.
Much appreciated.
And then the next year, I said, you're still doing a good job. I want to give you a $4,000 more. So now I'm paying you $67,000 a year.
Fantastic. And now you're going to give me another pay rise?
Well, in the third year, we decide to re-evaluate our wages to you. And what I've decided to do is to make your wage the same as when you started.
So you're going to cut my wages?
No, I'm not cutting it. Richard, no, you misunderstand. I'm just taking it back to the start when I was paying you 60 grand. If you look from here to here, there's no cut.
I'm no worse off.
You're no worse off. This is effectively the ploy that the Treasurer is trying to do. He's trying to say, you're not worse off when the Lamington disappears because
imagine you never had it in the first place.
Let's go back to before I gave you to the Lamington and then taking it away, you're no worse off.
Well, let's just see what else he's got to say.
About this year,
Yeah.
they're getting the low and middle income tax offset.
But that is not a permanent feature of the tax system.
Oh, a permanent feature
So
of the tax system.
I was giving people more money. I'm about to take it off them, but they shouldn't worry because it wasn't a permanent feature of the tax system.
What's the difference between... What is a permanent feature of the tax system, Richard? Are there any permanent features of the tax system?
I think under the Constitution, the government can change the tax system whenever it wants.
So the government could make any part of the tax system disappear.
But the Treasurer gets to decide what's a permanent feature and which bit he wants to change.
There you go. That's quite a handy little thing.
Very handy.
That ends.
That's the point.
So all these people under
that's the
80
point.
grand are going to be
That's the
worse
point.
off.
No, they're not. And the key point here, David, is we are making a structural reform.
So the key point is, Matt, they're making a structural reform. I thought the key point was they're taking money off low and middle income earners and giving it to high income earners.
Well, maybe that's what the Treasurer thinks is a structural reform. Often tax reform means lower taxes, but what's interesting in this particular case is it doesn't mean lower taxes for everybody. It just means lower taxes for high income earners.
We're getting rid of a whole 37 cents in the dollar tax bracket. That's really important to understand. A low and middle income tax offset is temporary. We extend.
When he says it's temporary, is that because he wants it to be temporary?
It's because he's decided that it will end and the stage 3 tax cuts will come in.
So giving an offset to low and middle income earners, temporary. Giving a tax cut to high income earners,
Permanent.
good to be the Treasurer.
We extended it last year, we extended it this year. It's not a permanent feature of the tax system.
But compared to this year, once that goes, compared to where they are right now, are people on average wages below 80 grand worse off or better off?
Now David's gone right back to the start and asked a very good question. He's specifically said, if we get rid of the Lamington and we introduce the stage 3 tax cuts, who is going to be better off and who is going to be worse off? And this graph here basically shows it exactly.
I can't wait to hear the
I
answer.
think surely he's going to answer it this time,
Yeah,
right?
let's see.
In 3 years' time.
Well, again, that's a temporary initiative.
So they're
this
worse
is
off.
this is a permanent feature of the tax system.
Temporary feature, permanent
That
feature.
wasn't really the question though, was it,
He
Richard?
didn't quite say who was going to be better off.
No.
Maybe it's coming.
Now, you raised with me people on higher incomes.
Yeah.
No, I just wanted to
does.
clarify. If you're earning less than $80,000 a year right now, you're getting the low and middle income tax offset. That ends.
Yes.
Yep.
I just want to hear your answer.
Absolutely, that is correct.
Where are you left? Worse off or better off?
You are better off on the stage 3 of our tax plan, stage 2, stage 1, all compared back to 2017,
compared to
18.
this-
Oh, we've gone back in time again.
Back in time. So if we go back years after a whole bunch of things that have already happened and we choose to compare ourselves to the distant past, we'll be better off when
Everyone's better off.
taking money off low income earners. Fascinating.
This year, compared to this year, Treasurer, are you going to be worse off?
But you're
in
not
3 years'
comparing
time?
it. You're not comparing an apple and an orange.
No, I'm.
Ooh.
We're not comparing an apple
Was
and an
that a
orange.
Freudian slip?
I think it's
we
a
are.
Freudian slip, perhaps.
Usually we compare apples with apples, don't we?
Yeah, but
He's just accused David of not comparing apples with oranges.
which technically is correct.
Oh, I need the head explode emoji.
Because he keeps comparing the stage 3 without the LAMITO or going back in time before any of these tax cuts happen.
He's kind of doing everything except this graph, isn't he?
Yeah, it's quite interesting.
Well, let's see where he gets to with his fruit salad.
You're comparing a
With respect, I am. I'm asking you.
No, you're not.
Well, for someone today, right, what tax they're paying today, they're going to be paying more in 3 years' time.
We've got to say well done, David Speers here. I mean, the man is trying.
He is
his
persistent.
hardest. He is persistent.
Very persistent in this. He keeps going back to that same question, asking him, the Treasurer, about this.
Scott Morrison's been accused of word salad. I think this is number salad. Let's just see where we get to.
So the low and middle income tax offset, which you were referring, has been extended for a year. We've used it as a stimulus measure. It's not a permanent feature of the tax system.
Right.
So it's stimulating the economy, it's giving money to low income earners, but it's not permanent.
And just incidentally, the LAMITO originally came in 2018, long before the recession. So
Wow.
at least originally it wasn't a stimulus measure.
What is a permanent feature of the tax system is what is legislated through the Parliament.
But compared to what's in there,
Did the LAMITO get legislated through the Parliament?
The Lamington absolutely went through the Parliament.
Just check it.
wallet today,
And so the
what's going to be in their wallet in 3 years' time, they're going to be worse off.
No, they're not. And
He's wrong again.
Did he just say that all these people won't be worse off?
80% of taxpayers,
Going to be worse off.
but the Treasurer doesn't apparently know that they're going to be worse off.
And look, credit to David Speers, but credit to Frydenberg. He's smiling. He's happy. He's loving this.
Yep.
I don't know what they briefed him on.
And can I also point out to you, because you did raise with me people on higher incomes, if you're on $200,000, you're earning 4 times as much as someone on $50,000.
Is that true?
It is actually true.
Is 200,000 4 times 50,000?
Yep.
He's really across his numbers. Why is he doing multiplication for us?
But what does this have to do with who's worse off and who's better off?
I think he might be trying to distract us here.
I think so.
Yet someone on $200,000 is paying many more times as a multiple the amount of tax that someone on $45,000.
Is that because we have a progressive income tax system, Matt?
Newsflash, people on higher incomes pay more income tax than people on lower incomes.
Wow, this is fascinating.
Well, he never actually answered the question, did he?
He never really referred to this graph or anything like it, did he?
No, despite David Speers' earnest attempts again and again and again to go back and ask this question, for some reason Josh Frydenberg didn't want to talk about their tax plan being bad for 80% of taxpayers.
So let's just recap. What we know is there's currently a policy known as the Lamington, which provides low-income earners a tax offset, a cash grant at the end of the year. And what we know is that stage 3 tax cuts give tax cuts to high-income earners but not low-income earners. And what we know is when you remove one and add the other, this is what you get. But David Speers has just spent 10 minutes trying to get the Treasurer to admit that 1 + 1 = 2, that apples are apples, but instead we've got number salad, word salad, and everything except clarity. One thing we can say for certain is that when we remove the Lamington and replace it with the stage 3 tax cuts, everyone up to $90,000 a year is going to be worse off, and everyone earning over $90,000 a year is going to be better off. Matt, is it as simple as that?
It is as simple as that. And what's really great in doing it the way we've done it by pausing it is that if you just watched that live, it would have just been an incomprehensible jumble of numbers.
That might have been his plan.
I think that was Josh's plan, but we've broken it down and we've explained exactly what he's saying and when he's wrong and how he's tried to avoid saying or answering basically the question. So Richard, out of 5 stars, how do you think Josh Frydenberg's performance was?
Oh, 5 stars. I mean, there is no doubt. I mean, the guy just stared down the barrel of a camera and said, black is white, night is day, and I'm giving tax cuts to high income earners and they're not gonna hurt low income earners. I mean, shamelessness, 5. Persistence, 5. I mean, it's a masterclass. What do you think about David?
Well, I think I'd give David 5 too, but for entirely different reasons. I think he was persistent, he stuck to the question, he tried his hardest to get Josh Frydenberg to answer the question that he posed right at the very start, and he just persisted through, and despite all of that, Josh refused to answer it, but David was certainly trying to get to an answer for that question.
Wow, 5 stars to them both and a confused populace. I'm not sure what that means, but that's why we need the spin bit. So the last thing the Treasurer wants you to do is understand what we've just said. That's why he spent 10 minutes of his life pretending that up is down and black is white. So if you want people to understand, if you want our democracy to actually be based on good data, please share information like this. The Treasurer's betting that you won't. That's our job here at the Spin Bin. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Richard.